Thank you guys very much for having us. You guys have just been looking at different maker movements across the world in different maker spaces. And our session is really about how do we take this idea of making things and turn it, put the focus back on our cities and on the sort of development of the areas in which we live. And so it's about how can we apply this maker mentality to like building up urban environments and building up cities and engendering innovation and growth. And so one of the things that we've found, all of us building communities, I think, I'm speaking for everyone here, to say that one really important component of developing a city and encouraging innovation is really about encouraging opportunities for people to come together and connect, meet new people, gain new perspectives, new ideas, and new ways of doing things. And then from the margins of those interactions is where innovation really comes from. And so in order to kickstart this session, we really wanted to ask each of you guys to stand up. This isn't just like a static presentation where we talk to you guys. We want you guys to each stand up, meet someone in the room that you've never spoken to before, and tell them something that you do or that you want to do. And in the process, also, why don't you take that opportunity to move up closer to the stage. So please, everyone, take this opportunity to get to know somebody new and tell them what you do, and they can tell you what they do. Thank you.
Stand up. Not saying you're standing, Daniel.
In the blue t-shirts, in the back left.
We want to see some movement.
Yeah, meet some new people.
As a way of identifying the makers.
So for those of you guys just walking into the room, right now we're engaging in a process of introducing yourselves to someone new that you don't know and telling them something that you want to do. Cool. So what we've just seen up here from the stage is like various people having conversations. We just saw a business card being passed over here. And I think this is something that we notice like on a sort of micro scale when we do this of like sharing an idea that you have or something that you want to do with new people is that those people start telling you how maybe they can help you or how they can work together with you or how their ideas might be able to combine with your ideas. And this is something that we're all doing within our cities. We're trying to accelerate the rate at which people come into contact with new ideas and new ways of doing things. So I'd like to introduce now Sénamé to stand up. He's going to talk about his project in Togo.
Hello. Hello, so my name is Sénamé. I'm architect and anthropologist and the founder of WellHub. WellHub is a hub, but is also a community about 20 young girls and boys. And this community is well known for this project of 3D printer, the first African 3D printer. So I have here a presentation of 3 projects we developed in WellHub. 3 projects with 3 different scales: an urban project, a project of a space, and a project of a product. But I will not have the time to talk about all this. I will just try to present the philosophy of everything we do in WellHub. And this philosophy is low high tech. And for tell you more about low high tech, I would like to present you two persons. The first person I would like to introduce is Pierre. Pierre is a Tamberma mason. Tamberma people are very traditional people you find at the North Togo and Benin. They are well known for their culture, the fact that everything they do are ritualized. And Pierre here is Otamari. That means that he has the height level you can attain for a Tamberma mason. And Tamberma are well known also for their architecture. They have a very interesting architecture which is at the World Heritage. The second person I would like to introduce is Morin. Morin is the leader of the Black Box. The Black Box is a hackerspace in Paris, and Morin is a hacker. He has been in MIT, and Morin every day work on clothes who make music or lights. And so if you think that these two persons belongs to two universes very opposite, you think as me since some months. Me, because I work a lot with Tamberma. I will show you a thing I do with Tamberma people. And I have to say that I'm not, at the beginning, very interested by the technological world, universe, because I assimilate it to pollution, to individuality, and to waste. So I say that I'm not, at the beginning, very interested by the universe of Morin, since I discover what we call the hacker movement and space like Fab Lab. And I find that in this specific space, people talk a lot about collaboration, solidarity, economy, transmission of the knowledge, and all these values. I know it in traditional African society where I work as architect. So I can say that I make myself the experience of niche. I was more appeased in front of this world of new technology, and since this moment, I try to invent something to make collaborate these two universes. And this thing we call low high tech, and we could talk about it after. But low high tech help us to make urban projects like the Hub City project. We've mobilized the concept like Archicamp and Fab Lab to try to help people in cities to have the capacity that people in village have to collaborate and try to do things. So we test this urban utopia in the city of Lome, make collaborate high technology and hacker ethic with traditional societies' values. And this project we begin to do like an utopia, give birth to a space which is the WellHub. And WellHub is a makerspace, but a makerspace created at the beginning to serve this urban project. It's a space we create to help population to have a strategic area who they can come, collaborate, and try to change their neighborhood. So we could talk a little more about WellHub and this project of 3D printer who WellHub gave birth after in the discussion if you want.
Hi. Where are we, John? Sorry. So I'm going to talk about some of my experiences in creating space
for slides might take a while to load, but it's one image anyway. How to create spaces and how to actually encourage other people to make spaces, how to encourage people to solve the problems that they have and the challenges that they have using the resources available around them. And I think this is also what's interesting about what's happening here. It's like looking at the resources that you have, not necessarily the maker movement in terms of Arduino and Raspberry Pis that have to be shipped in from the outside, but how you can actually use what's there on the ground to solve your own problems locally. I've been working in Egypt for the last year or so, on and off. And most recently, I was working in a space in Aswan, where there aren't so many resources available, looking at how we could actually catalyze the community and how we could create the opportunity for people to come together and work on solving local challenges using what they had. In order to do this, what I normally use is what I call storytelling, essentially. You tell stories that inspire people. You tell stories about what they might be able to achieve, what they might be able to do, and also you encourage them to tell the stories about their own dreams, their own ideas, what they might like to do. And then you create opportunities for it to become a reality. You create an event or a context where they can come together and they can bring their projects, offering their own social object, as it were, in the project that they're making together. You create the space, and you create the opportunity, and you create the time for them to come together and build something. You say to them, you know that thing that you want to do, that you're going to do tomorrow, or that you're going to do one day. Today is the day that you're going to come and do it. Today is the day that you have the opportunity. And then you encourage them to do so. And you make it their responsibility to create what they want. And then they bring their own dreams and their own ideas, or they pick up on what you offer, or what you've identified as well. So the example that I was hoping to talk about, which when the image loads you'll see, but at the moment I invite you to use your imagination. On the island that we were working on, one of the challenges that had been identified by the community was that they couldn't actually get internet to part of the island. One of the villagers, Mustafa Dash, had set up an internet wireless point that was broadcasting to a good portion of the village, but he couldn't get past the trees. So as part of a festival that we organized called the Publica Festival, where we invited people to come and start their own social projects with the village, people came from Egypt, they came from also the Netherlands, we had people coming from the UK and Germany, people traveling just to come into this space and work together with the villagers, that they could find shared problems and shared opportunities to collaborate on to build something together. Bill was inspired by my idea to build a mesh network on the island. I think, Bill, are you in the room, or? I thought I saw him earlier. But so essentially, he was inspired by this idea. He took charge of the project, and he was introduced to people within the village and in the community that were also motivated by this project to work together. They found what they needed using local materials. They built a cantenna, which is a means of actually receiving the wireless signal from a cup that they found on top of the zeer pot. They built a pole, which was actually constructed for a toilet that they found lying around the space. They found everything else within the local area. We even had people coming from TE Data, which is the Egyptian equivalent of T-Mobile, coming and seeing the technology that they were building and looking at how they could apply it within their own space. And together they came together over a period of 5 days, and they built a wireless internet point for Nubia Lin, the space that we're setting up. In the meantime, we had numerous other activities happening. People were making plastic bag, new crafts, new ways to recycle with the craftspeople on the island, with the craftswomen on the island, looking at what they could do together. But ultimately, the underlying technology was just storytelling. It was just, you have the opportunity to come and do something that interests you, that motivates you. You take responsibility for it. And this is a picture of the guys working together at Nubia Lin's beautiful space to set up the cantenna. They're presently looking for where they could find a wireless internet point. But essentially, it's very low management. We create the opportunity. You create the chance, you create the story, you create the inspiration, and you provide access to the tools and knowledge, which is one of the joys of the internet and open source, and then you get out of the way and let it happen. And then you see beautiful things occur and beautiful things emerge. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I think we're all used to dealing in situations of lots of constraints, infrastructural and otherwise. So thanks for bearing with us as we're, applying that maker mentality to getting the presentation shown. Cool. So my name is John, and I run a space in Rwanda called The Office. It's a co-working space. But it's more than just like a place for people to come and work together. It's a place where artists come and show. We have art exhibitions. We do poetry nights, TEDx events, pecha-kuchas for agribusinesses, and networking events, and sort of everything in between. And we've slowly, over the past year and a half, built from about a 60 square meter space on the top floor of a building to now having the top 3 floors of that building, which consists of sort of a big co-working space with anyone from a tech company to a children's literacy company to photographers and graphic designers. There's an older woman who's working with educational charities in Rwanda who's co-working with us. And then downstairs, we now have a Dutch organization doing access to finance. There's an artist. There's a tech company who the CEO of which is in the audience today, actually. And then on the ground floor, there's a Danish organization providing acceleration training and stuff. And so really what we've done is, rather than just create like a place for people to work, we're trying to actually create like an ecosystem to accelerate these opportunities to meet new people. This activity that you guys engaged in when you first came into the room, this is essentially what we're doing with a city, with a neighborhood. We're creating opportunities for people to come together and be exposed to new ideas and new dreams and new opportunities for collaboration. And I think that's something that's really, that I think distinguishes the approaches that we're all talking about, is the difference between sort of a top-down approach to supporting innovation and really this maker mentality and sort of grassroots, bottom-up approach to like creating opportunities for our city and really engineering change within our city. And I think one of the more interesting examples of that in Kigali was actually with Clarice, the CEO of Hey Hey, who's in the audience here. You often see in Africa, there's a lot of sort of innovation hubs or different projects to inspire innovation or something else, and oftentimes these projects end up becoming somehow siloed. And one of the most interesting things that has come out of the office, actually, it's totally unexpected. It's not something you'd ever sort of impose on a siloed tech community. Is the fact that Clarice is now making apps for teaching Kinyarwanda to children. They've ended up creating the first Kinyarwanda children's literacy app in Rwanda ever. And this is something they're going to be able to start rolling out onto different tablets and different opportunities for kids across the country to have access to mobile technology for learning. And this is something that came out of the fact that they're sharing office space with a literacy company that's making children's books and animating those children's books. And one day they were just sitting next to each other and decided, hey, we could actually turn this into an app. And this is developed into an app on the one hand, but then it's also sort of infiltrated into this program that their company is doing to teach high school students to program. And now they're working with kids from across the city, and those kids are actually designing apps for younger children. So high school students designing apps for younger children to learn Kinyarwanda, to learn many things, and they're gamifying it to make it fun. And so why that's relevant and why I'm up here talking, one of the things that we're working on next is actually to create a third space within our community. So now we have a co-working space, and we have all these different offices where people can work. And the next step really is to create a space where anyone can come in at any time with an idea to share it with people. And so we're creating what we call the roof. Our space is called The Office, so the next step, of course, is called The Roof, because it's going to be on the roof. And it's going to be an opportunity for, as you can see up there, for community ideas, environmental activism. But then we're going to really create this opportunity for a big mishmash of like performing artists with movies, with spoken word poetry, and lectures from people like us and other people to really encourage this cyclical sharing of ideas. And so it's something that we're working on. It's something that's going to take a while to get off the ground. And there's like many other sort of facets to that if you'd like to talk about it more afterwards or during the questions come up to me. But I'll just put up just some information so you guys can keep in touch with us and keep in touch with our project if you're interested. Thank you guys very much for listening. So now, like, I don't know who in the audience has a microphone, but if anybody wants to ask a question to us, we've basically got about 15 more minutes left in our session. So just raise your hand and somebody should give you a microphone.
Thanks. I have a question for Jon. I really like the open model where you mishmash so many different things together, and that's how you get the creativity going. But how do you decide who should come in and who shouldn't? Because you could attract people from agriculture and movie artists. How do they go together? Like, where do you draw the line? What goes together? Where is there a good exchange of ideas, and where do the worlds just not meet at all?
Yeah, that's a really good question, so thank you very much for it. I think actually our belief in what we came up with very early on in the project is that we would not curate at all. So the sort of belonging to our communities in a way, self-curating or self-filtering, because only the people that are interested in collaboration, sharing their ideas are attracted to be a part of our community. But really, I think it's the most interesting when you have the agriculturalist and the filmmaker sat next to each other in a room, because it's the intersections of their experiences and their worldviews and their skills is where you're actually getting innovation. The filmmaker may be able to help identify a really interesting way for the agriculturalist to tell their story of what they're doing, to be able to communicate that message to more people, to find more partners. And then vice versa, I'm sure there's opportunities I can't even consider, and that's kind of the whole point, is like, when you put people together that you wouldn't expect, you end up coming out of that, like amazing. I mean, innovation's not something that you can kind of you can control. So trying to say, we're going to have innovation because we're going to get a technologist and an artist sat next to each other, and they have particular skills, so it's going to lead to a particular type of innovation. That's not really, I don't think that's as productive as just saying, creating an open space, building trust, inclusiveness, and some of these sort of cultural, beliefs in the community. I think that's really where you get this sort of interesting, interactions and outcomes.
I have a question. Hi, Jon. My name is Sheila. I'm from MLab East Africa in Nairobi. I have a question on the community. So you said you have different, let's say, companies in different sectors. Do you, is it that the office came into a building that had these people, or do they come to the office and say, hey, I am an agriculturalist and I would like to have a space here. I work with kids, I'd like to have a space here. How does that work? Because I think it's a beautiful model to have people in different sectors, and especially I think we have this thing as guys in the technology sector where we all want to be in one building, so we just end up interacting amongst ourselves. So the ideas are not as diverse as maybe in the ecosystem you're trying to build. So I'd like to know, do they talk to you and ask you for space, or is it that the office came into a space that had all these people and by default this ecosystem just came to be? Thank you.
Thanks. With our particular space, we actually charge for usage of our office space, and then we have offices downstairs. So it's sort of a we don't have any outside funding. It all comes from my back pocket, at least from the beginning. So we have to find a way to sustainably finance the operation. And so right now we essentially rent space like a co-working space anywhere in the world, and then we also have real estate downstairs in the building that we sublet at like a really slight premium to be able to cover some of our costs. And the idea of that is that the participation of the community helps to finance the community. Of course, one of the problems with that is that it ends up, obviously, a certain segment of the market, so a lot of people aren't going to be able to afford office space in a co-working space because, unfortunately, we can't charge that much less than what you charge for co-working space here in Berlin, for example, just because a lot of our costs are similar, and in fact, our internet costs are much higher. So what we're actually trying to work on now is this rooftop project, which essentially allows us to have an open space where anyone can come in at any time. So we're talking about having a little box with like components for the maker community that they can buy and work on those, on certain maker projects there in the cafe. Also a stage that we're building with a local performing arts group, a local dance troupe, to be able to have like dance performances or even rehearsals there at the space. So then the idea is to monetize that space with with coffee and with beer and with food, so that we can pay to finance the space and pay for the running costs of the space. But really, we don't curate at all. People just come in and they take office space if they want to, and if they don't want to, then they work somewhere else. But yeah, so far, like, we've just sort of attracted the weird and wonderful people of Kigali, and like more and more so as people see the crazy things that we're doing.
Okay. This question is for Sénamé from Sénam. we had a conversation yesterday. I am fascinated by the philosophy behind World Lab. And we had a conversation about growing pains because what you're doing is so cool. It attracts a lot of attention. And so now there's the dilemma of what do you do with all this attention and how you deal with the prospect of probably getting people take you into the wrong direction. We had the conversation in French, but it was what the members, like the pressure probably from some of the members to do something with this notoriety and how that might impact the soul of World Lab. So can you talk to that?
Okay, thank you. World Lab exists since July 2012. And since this period, we are really independent. We don't ask money to anyone. All we do, we pay ourselves for it. So that helps us to do what we want to do and to stay focused on this philosophy to do low high tech. Because if we know that if you open what we do to another actors, they can come and try to put it in some direction that it is not ours. So from now, we don't have problem because we try to do it with our own resources. But we have a lot of pressure, not for actors right now, because we are well known in the world, but in Togo, we don't really, we are not really known. Even the government don't really know World Lab, so we don't have problem. But we have a pressure with young people who come, because World Lab is the only one Fab Lab, the only one incubator, and the only one open co-working space in Togo. So we have a lot of young people who want to enter the community, but we can't accept everybody. And so for change the scale, I think we will need to deal with some actor who can help us. And at this moment, the problem will come, but we will try to manage it as we do since we exist.
I think this is probably a question that applies to both of you with respect to like the sharing of spaces, like balancing openness versus closedness, because when you're completely open and when you generate a lot of hype and a lot of activity, everybody wants a piece of you. So you end up with a flood of people making information requests and wanting to be associated with your space, wanting to collaborate, wanting to do things. And yeah, I'm curious on your like further thoughts from both of you actually on how to balance this. Like, how do you remain open that you can generate the diversity whilst at the same time not becoming a communication point that everybody is tearing you in one direction or wanting to tell your story or wanting to promote what you're doing because it's so exciting?
I think that's really a good problem to have. I think, I mean, really, like, I'm not, I guess I personally haven't seen the downsides of too much openness or too much collaboration yet. I mean, in a sense, being a terminal point for connections in a city is actually a really good thing for the community involved and for everyone else, and I haven't really seen the downsides of that so far. And maybe that's just naivety, and I'll admit that there's a good chance that there is a bit of naivety or an ignorance into what we do. But so far, we just believe that the more people that we can get involved with our project, the better. And it's really, there's never been a situation where it's like, oh, I wish I hadn't collaborated with that person. I mean, like somehow we seem to attract like people that really get the philosophy behind the space. And we're getting requests all the time. Like I think in a couple weeks, we're gonna be hosting the next like group called Rwanda Research Roundtable, and it's a bunch of social science, mostly social science researchers. And you think, what do social science researchers have to do with sort of an innovation, sort of art, creative space? But it ends up being really cool. They come and they talk about their research projects, they talk about the problems they're having with research, And then that creates an opportunity for more people outside of the research community to engage with those sorts of topics, and then also for the research community to meet other people that have real world problems that aren't just looking at it from a sort of ivory tower perspective. And so, I don't know, the more, to be honest, so far I haven't encountered a situation where I've ever had like a collaboration that wasn't really worthwhile. So I don't know, and that might just be naive, but I hope not.
And Sénamé? I mean, the reason I ask is we had issues with Open Design City. We created a completely open space in Berlin, and one of the problems that we had was that you'd almost be completely bombarded all the time by people coming in and saying, hey, what you doing? Hey, what you doing? Hey, what you doing? And sometimes that serendipity can be a very powerful thing. You meet people that you can collaborate with and creates new opportunities. And that does lead you in new and diverse directions. But at the same time, if you're constantly open like that, you're also sometimes being pulled in different directions by those interactions. So like to maintain a focus as to what you're targeting. Sometimes that serendipity is an opportunity, but sometimes it can also be a distraction, and how to manage that within a space.
I think that's actually going to the core of the point, which, and this is something that we hold really dear in the office, which is that we don't actually have a goal. We don't have an intention. The serendipity is the intention. With the knowledge, with the full knowledge and understanding and experience, that serendipity creates innovations, and it's beneficial for everyone in the community. So we actually, I love the fact that every time a new person comes into the community, it changes the community a little bit, because our brand as such, as the office, isn't something that we really care about controlling. It's really something that's controlled by the people that are part of the community. The last time we did, in fact, like a theory of change exercise. I don't know if anybody in this room knows what that means. It's kind of like this idea of understanding like how we go from events or activities into a particular area of change. We just invited everyone from our community, from people that organize events with us, to people that partner with us for events, to people that work in the space, to people that have office space sort of in our real estate downstairs. And we had this really open sort of exchange. And then so everyone in the community kind of directed, okay, this is where the ship is sailing, and this is what we want to do, and I think that's really cool. And to do that every 6 months or every 3 months, or to completely rewrite the space as often as we can, I think that's really cool. And we're just really, I mean, so yeah, the goal is serendipity in that sense. So I don't know. In that sense, it's good to have more people coming in.
I can add something to this. The idea behind what we do in Lome is this. I see that traditional societies don't need architects and urbanists. So what I want to do is how we can help cities to reconquer this capacity traditional area have to collaborate and do things who works. So the solution for us is to give people who live in the city some place they can come and being re-educated to this way of collaborate and do a thing for themselves, and don't wait for the government to do it. So we create this space, but it is people who decide what they want to do with this space.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. It's also, I think what interests me is like when people start to do things and other people see them, then it makes available to them a new way of behaving or a new way of doing things. You know, I love this story of, I think it was a guy in Pakistan who started filling up potholes in his street, and everybody was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that? That's against the law. And he explained what he was doing and just filling them with tar and setting fire. And then the next day he went out and all of the potholes were filled. And just because he'd made that behavior available to people, he'd given a new thing, like don't just accept it, don't just accept what's here. You can change it, you can hack it, you can make it. And I think this is one of the important things that these spaces do, is it creates that chance. You can go in and you can see somebody making a 3D printer out of e-waste, for example, which is very cool, by the way. But this makes available that opportunity that you can be different, you can try something new, and you can actually commit to changing your own environment and making something worthwhile for yourself and others.
So it seems you guys are really generating a discussion here. But in the interest of time, we actually have to move on to the next session. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for that. Please give them a round of applause.